Okay, so I decided to come on here and actually tell people exactly what it is that I'm doing. And since people are aware of the first few videos or what have you on the updates on the robot, I figured I'd just come out here and show the actual source of inspiration that I had. So this here is Krusty. He is a robot that I designed based on inspiration from BattleBots, and he is an homage to Rusty. Unfortunately, this one does not have the ability to fight in robot battles. He is just made for an entirely different purpose. So, but he does have his popcorn hat. As you can see, he's in a bit of state of disrepair. I unfortunately tried to get him fixed up for purposes to show for demonstrations. Unfortunately, there are a few components on here that don't work anymore. So Krusty here was initially created as a bit of a joke that we had for me and my wife's wedding. So the idea was that we didn't have a flower girl set up, and since we didn't have a flower girl or a ring bearer, we decided instead we were going to build a robot. And it was based off of an idea that a friend of ours actually had. And we were like, huh, what if we just made it after Rusty? But given the amount of time that I had, I really didn't have much time in order to really get all the parts that I really truly wanted, and I had to do everything as fast as I humanly could in such a short amount of time that we were given. So there's Rusty right there in BattleBots, and we're just showing him just inspiration. Poor little robot. Yeah, he's getting his butt whooped. But everybody loved Rusty.
He gets back over.
Oh, that is true. He does get back over.
Rusty was fast.
Yeah, he was fast. Definitely fast. Compared to poor Krusty, that's not meant to have been a robot for battling, so what you gonna do? He's got his little power drill there too. So we had a bit of a chit chat, and apparently it took about 2 months in order to go from conceptual design to full-blown put together of this machine. And I was honestly kind of in the zone in order to get it done. But him building Krusty was not my only obligation. I had a bunch of other things I had to do for the wedding. So we had to design lanterns for centerpieces. These aren't the official ones, but these are kind of examples of what they looked like. They're all 3D printed, but you essentially print the parts and then assemble it with a 3D pen, and they came out pretty good. The ones we had for our wedding were black, and they had LED strips inside of them. And then, of course, there was a bunch of other things that we had to get to, and it was pretty tedious, but it was worth it because the wedding was gorgeous. But I figured I'd also go on here and show a little bit more of the component side of things on how Krusty works, and to see how, to kind of show you a little bit before he inevitably gets either put away for good or disassembled for parts. So Krusty's purpose was to be the ring bearer and also to be the flower girl. And the way that we achieved this is by utilizing lots and lots of toy cars. Or 3, to be specific. 3 toy cars. Up here is basically the smokestack, where it houses all of the flower petals. As you can see down below there's some flower petals, which gets converted down into this shaft here. This is kind of a little sweeper to kind of push everything away. But if you look down, there's a screw down there. That screw basically pushes all the petals down into a second chamber, which is on a conveyor system. that conveyor belt basically rotates, and then all of the flower petals get pooped out here. I am going to turn it on because this was actually something I was very much proud of when I actually finished it. As you can see, they go, and flowers go at the back. Of course, I had to add a little, how's my driving, little stance there. Just a little something to add character. Another thing that I was trying to work on was the ability for him to have arms. As you can see, these arms do not exist anymore because they have unfortunately been scrapped, but these are the shoulders. If we look in here, these are basically slots where you put the pieces in. Actually, it looks like, yeah. So the pieces broke off. That's why he doesn't have arms anymore. But essentially, these arms rotate, or the shoulders rotate, and they allow for him to carry a basket. And that basket contained the rings. Hence why he was our ring bearer. I didn't realize I was zooming in like crazy, so let me try to fix that again. So anyways, here's his eyes, and under his hat, it's removable, but these are the tires basically that were repurposed from the chassis underneath, which is basically a monster truck chassis that is an RC controlled monster truck chassis. Here is the movement controller that I had specifically done for this. It's a little excessive, but I did do it. It uses mostly Vex parts or Vex robotics components, and it works. It's perfectly fine. Here's the other controller that basically controls the rest of his functions. You have the one for the power, for the pedal spreader, and then also for the basket lift and whatnot. And the other one here that's interesting is the foam dart launcher. That's right, Krusty could be able to launch a foam dart with the use of a modified cannon right at the bottom there. I brought him up here a little bit closer so that way you can actually see him, or we can actually look inside his components. So it's basically an Adventure Force cannon, or a little off-brand Nerf dart launcher, and it has been modified in order to turn on with the flick of a switch. Now the unfortunate thing is that the actual mechanical components on the controller does not work anymore. I have tried to rewire this thing numerous times, and unfortunately the space inside is not easily acceptable. In order to check what's wrong, I have to go all the way into this tiny little hole just so I can get into that circuit board that's hiding in there. And it's unfortunate. But the fortunate thing is that the controls actually work perfectly fine. This was another mechanism that I was really happy with. It kind of works in the same vein as that of a camshaft roller, or something that you would see in an old school animatronic or something. But the basic gist is that it is a single motor that has a felt tip felts that squeeze together these little like rotators. And these rotators are set at certain positions in order for this thing to turn on. So when you press one switch, turns on the machine, and then the other switch fires it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to use that part for the actual wedding because that didn't work out very well. Because we couldn't get him to turn around very efficiently. But all in all, I'm very impressed with how he was, and the fact that he was only built within 2 months was a miracle on its own. Which leads me to the creation of the new mechanics and the new reimagining of Krusty 2.0. And thus it starts with fixing this chassis so that we can get started with the rest of the robot. Fret not, Mr. Krusty. You will live on in a new way.